Hey guys! I'm Ria.
I'm Matt.
I'm Kaylee.
I'm Amelia.
And today we're going to be talking about Black women in hip-hop and how they've tackled issues of racism, misogyny, and other political issues. We're going to start this by talking a little bit about the background of hip-hop and the presence of racism within it. And then we're going to continue to explain gender inequalities and other LGBTQ issues faced within the community. And to do so, we're going to talk about a couple specific women and how they contributed to this movement.
So, Amelia, I'm super curious, what are the origins of hip-hop?
Okay, so before looking into the origins of hip-hop, firstly we felt it was necessary to outline some of the key terms that are often associated and related to the subject of Black women in hip-hop, which include Afrocentrism, Afrofuturism, feminism and intersectionality. Williams' article identifies and defines these terms precisely. Williams describes Afrocentrism as the political framework which aims to reconceptualise a world with blackness at its centre. This term nicely leads us into the discussion of the origins of hip-hop. We know that the roots of hip-hop can be found in the Bronx, New York City during the 70s. It quickly gained a large following and appreciation and became an art form with a strong sense of belonging and community during a time of extreme social injustice, discrimination, prejudice and oppression against African American people. Hip-hop provided space for those from these marginalised communities to express their musical and artistic creativity, which subsequently gave them a voice to speak up against the injustice they were facing. It gave Black Americans a platform to highlight the prevalent social issues impacting their lives so drastically at the time.
So I wanted to get a little bit into the dynamics within hip-hop between men and women. There's been a lot of pushback on the way women are treated within the genre. There's a certain level of privilege that men get and women don't, as usually when men act out, they're praised for making a statement, while when women act out, they're put down and disregarded as crazy or called names. A couple of ways that men and women differ in their expressions through hip-hop include that men and women have different values through their music. Men usually value power and dominance, while women value empowerment or more feminist ideals. Women are usually more behind the scenes and they don't get as much recognition. There are a similar amount of men and women listeners of hip-hop, but a lot of hip-hop is geared towards male audiences. Most breakout artists are male, and women are often reduced to their bodies and their sexuality. I wanted to get a little bit into the lack of a place that women have in hip-hop. Like I mentioned earlier, rap and hip-hop is dominated by male artists, and then in turn focuses mainly on a male audience, which commonly leads to hypermasculinity, misogyny, the demeaning of women, violence, and homophobia in lyrics. In response to corporate pressures, many rappers abandon political and social messages and focus on material wealth and sexual exploits to sell records. Something surprising is that female rappers are not always against this, and sometimes female rappers themselves self-objectify and self-exploit and use derogatory lyrics when referring to other women. So while some women play into these stereotypes, it's most probably because of the industry norms and the lack of space made for women within the industry. One of the biggest issues and one of the biggest barriers women face in the music industry is the way the industry thinks about women, and the perception of women is highly stereotypical, sexualized, and without skill. There are many women that fight back against these harmful stereotypes and pressures, and we'll continue to talk about them, but the first one that we're going to talk about is Missy Elliott, and Kaylee is going to talk about how she fought back and changed the perception of women within hip-hop.
So as mentioned before, Missy Elliott, born in 1971, is a great example of an artist who not only redefines traditional gender roles and provides a Black woman's unique perspective on the genre of hip-hop, but also made it a goal to empower her community and bring light to issues such as stereotyping, the oppression of specifically Black women's voices, and men in power imbalances. I'm going to be going into a little bit more detail about her story and motives throughout her career. So African American music is often a reflection of the patriarchal ideals that were adopted by Black men after the end of slavery. Treating women as inferior and general misogyny helped shape stereotypes of Black women that are still present today and that have been present in rap and hip-hop music throughout its development. Missy took a lot of inspiration from a woman named Joan Morgan, a Jamaican-American author who wrote about the exclusion of black women from the feminist movement throughout the years, as well as the encouragement of black women to break free from the stereotypes they've been held to. These are two key ideals that Missy incorporates into her music. And these themes are especially present in her song Work It, as she motivates women to turn the tables, so to speak, when it comes to traditional gender roles, due to the fact that male rappers have historically sung about women as objects or conquests. She encourages women to take back that power. Throughout the song, she portrays herself as the more dominant being, taking rather than receiving. She also talks about traditional themes in rap, such as alcohol and female beauty standards, through a new lens. During her final verse, she empowers women to fight back against oppression and male expectation, providing a very judgment-free attitude towards women providing for themselves and doing what they need to do to achieve success independent from a man. She breaks stereotypes, following a theme of power over men and portraying herself as equal or superior to the opposite sex. In this way, she is taking back power, forcing representation of a black woman's perspective, and through her music, empowering a community of people who have too long been disrespected and degraded by society. She is yet another example of how hip-hop has been used to try to inspire change and represent communities of people who have been mistreated.
After some time, Michelle was another black woman that tackled these issues with another song from her album Cookie, the Anthropological Mixtape. And the song is called Dead Beep Boulevard Part 1, which contains powerful commentary on racial injustice and violence within the black community. In the song, she's like, just because civil rights is law doesn't mean that we all abide. And these lyrics call out everyone that think racism is not a thing anymore, just because some bills got passed. Noting that the album was released in 2002 and was discussing violence as such still occurs, shows that even after 30 years of the law being passed, the whole everyone has equal rights is like not a thing, and racism is really still prominent. So one of the very first albums that were very impactful by a black female rapper was The Miseducation of Lauryn Hill. So this album came out in 1995, and overall, like the whole album, Lauryn, she soulfully raps, sings, and ad-libs the experience as a black woman through the scope of hip-hop, which wasn't really a common thing at the time, especially something to go so big commercially. And the album's lyrics are incredibly personal and socially conscious, like in the song Doo Wop, That Thing. She sings, men, you better look out. Some girls are only about that thing. And this really picks at the issue with men having superficial expectations of women. And so after this album was released, it was the first album by an unaccompanied female rapper to debut at number 1 on the Billboard Hot 200, selling 422,000 copies in its first week alone, and it remained at number 1 for 4 non-consecutive weeks, and is now certified diamond, which is very hard to get. Not everybody has that. And with the booming success of this album, it really opened the doors for not only female rappers, but for all artists to embrace their authenticity and to make their voices heard about social or personal issues.
The talented Queen Latifah is yet another great example of a successful hip-hop artist from the 1980s who promoted and celebrated black feminism. She became one of the leading role models in the world of hip-hop, with her catchy lyrics, all which covered topics surrounding sexism, racism and domestic violence. She was one of the first black women to highlight these major issues and infiltrate them into mainstream consciousness, particularly through her track Unity. Much of Queen Latifah's music was inspired by blues, reggae and jazz, all of which are genres closely related and created through black culture. Fundamentally, she provided a voice for women in the music industry, which was an extremely male-dominated industry at the time, particularly within hip-hop. Although Afrocentrism is a concept which promotes and encourages preservation of African American culture, Williams' source in particular argues that this may often exclude those from other marginalised communities, such as women, queer and trans individuals. Intersectionality is absolutely essential when discussing all topics, and especially when discussing music.
I love that because Michelle was also a black woman that wanted to incorporate some LGBTQ into her music. An example of this is in her Pocketbook remix video. This video was very ahead of its time because in the video, it's a queer party and Michelle is putting her shoes into the alpha male role, trying to tempt the women to dance. And this also challenges the images of LGBTQ in the hip-hop industry since homophobia was still quite prevalent in the community at that time.
So, considering all these points, with this podcast we have aimed to highlight the powerful role of both individuals and groups from these marginalised communities and their strong positive contributions to hip-hop in general.
Oh my god, you guys made such amazing points. I feel like I learned so much. Like, it's so crazy, like, all the different ways that black women in hip-hop have been able to contribute to social justice throughout all aspects, whether it's, racism, misogyny, or even for the LGBTQ plus. Now everyone go stream Cookie, the anthropological mixtape by Michelle and Gayacello.
Thanks for listening.